Santos rides a hero bold, in the shadows lurking, but his heart pure gold. Fighting crime and chaos in his custom patrol car. Every night danger's lights shine like a star. They call him Danger for his daring stance, with a heart full of hope and a will to advance. He's the shield for the weak and the brave in the night. In the wild streets of Los Santos, he's the fearless knight.
All right, welcome everyone to the Submersive Podcast, Episode 3. We are joined here today by my co-host, Mindless Kills, and a couple of our special guests. Assassin Hero 181, a.k.a. Luke Stevens, Sam Crow, a.k.a. Duncan, and Lord War Clown, a.k.a. Baal. Say hello to everyone. We are very excited to have you both here. We are going to be doing a flashback-style episode where we brought in two of the oldest members of our community who were originally around long before Submersive was ever created and played a lot of FiveM before any of us ever even knew what it was, basically. So we are very excited to have these guys around. They are true O.Gs. Baal seems to have disappeared, so we're going to wait for him to get back real quick. And then Sam is muted, so we're going to have him unmute, so that way we can begin talking.
Okay.
Apparently Baal clicked off, so he will be back in just a moment. But it's very nice to have you, Sam. We're excited.
Thank you, sir. Glad to be here. Glad to be here.
Yeah. We're going to be covering a lot today, mostly going over the old days of FiveM and what you guys did before Submersive was created, the original places where you guys came from and where you started RPing at.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a long time. I don't know. I think it's been since 2016 we started playing together.
Man,
Yeah, it was like
in high school.
Yeah, it's been a long time. I guess it was whenever FiveM was pretty close to when they first came out. With FiveM as like a functional thing that actually worked.
It has been a long journey to get to where we are now.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot smoother now than it was before.
There's Baal.
Oh, the camera lens was even better.
Yeah, it did that to me the first day I got on here too. I don't know why it does that.
It's uploading something right now on that first page. It keeps saying this is your upload page.
Oh, it might be because we're probably logged into the same account from my computer to your computer. That's where I originally logged in at. It'll be all right. Okay. Alrighty, gentlemen. Like I said before, we are excited to have the true O.Gs here. We have Sam Crow and Baal, some of the original founders of Dogs of War who played in FiveM servers long before we even knew they existed. As I'd already said, they are the true O.Gs, the old guys of playing in FiveM. Sam was giving us a little bit of background about it. Started probably around 2016, and I know you gentlemen were playing games far before then, and I'm very excited to get into that. So the first thing I want to go over as a topic is what games you guys played before you ever got into FiveM. Because I know, from what I know, Baal played a lot of World of Warcraft and a lot of other games on various consoles that he had played before he knew FiveM existed, and long before he got a PC.
I played a lot of Elder Scrolls, Skyrim, Oblivion, and Elder Scrolls. That's actually where the Dogs of War started. Was in Elder Scrolls.
Yep, the original Dogs.
We started there as a group, and a clan on the game is how it started. And we had 300 members on there, and then we ended up quitting playing that, and I got into FiveM. And when I first started playing FiveM, it was, I don't know, it was weird. I watched a lot of videos. Not gonna lie, Trav, Piper, and Sheriff Strafe, people like that. I watched a lot of them. Bathroom Bruce. I don't even know if he's
same here
around anymore, but he was one of my favorites. And they got me into FiveM. I'm not gonna lie. They're the ones that got me into FiveM. If I wouldn't have watched that videos, I wouldn't have ever tried to play.
Yeah.
A guy named Bad Codes. He played with Trav a lot. They were all pretty cool. I don't see much of them around anymore. I can't find new videos on them, but they were really cool people to watch when they were around. I really liked their shit. Anyway,
Yeah.
I started playing FiveM. I don't know. At first, I automatically wanted to start my biker gang. That's something I liked doing on regular GTA was the biker stuff.
I remember doing a lot of that.
So I went ahead and I made made a biker gang, and I called it Dogs of War. And I think Sam was my first recruit. I met
The
him,
originals.
met him in the game, and started hanging out with him. And I messaged him. I was like, Sam Crow, huh?
Yo, turtle punch.
Sounds like a biker name. You should come over here and join my biker club. He's like, all right, cool. And that's how I met Sam.
Yeah, I just got like a random
we kinda-
DM from him. So
Yo.
Yeah.
it's funny how it started out
We've
like
been
that.
We've been hanging ever since, and that's been what, since 2016.
Yeah,
So-
somewhere around there.
And
Yeah, it's been a
that's
long
how
time,
we all
man.
got started.
It was very primitive back in those days.
It was.
Long before the
Didn't have a lot of
coders
options.
took over,
Yeah.
made everything expensive, and started deep
Back
diving
in those days, our life revolved around a camper and meth.
Pretty much, yeah. That's all we did was cook meth.
That's what we did. That's all we ever did back then.
Sit around and
is
shoot
in
the shit.
camper and bullshit. Shoot the shit and get drunk and cook meth on the game.
Yep. There wasn't much to do in those days, you know. They didn't have all the fancy stuff that
Fuck
we
no,
had
there
now.
wasn't.
There was nothing really available.
No.
I mean, there was no drug scripts or drug runs or anything like that. I mean, you know, it was,
No, back
everything
in
was
those
pretty
days,
much you had to RP it out or it didn't exist.
Yeah, you did.
the
I
true
mean, it
days
was
of
cool,
RP.
but
Yeah.
it bugged me that it took so long for that kind of stuff to come around. You know what I mean? And then when I
Yeah.
first started seeing it, when I first started seeing people doing cool stuff on coding and stuff on the game, that instantly interested me, because I was like, well, man, what can we put into the game? If you can put anything into the game, I think I want to make some biker clothes that actually would fit our club, you know, with our own logo and stuff on it. It took what, Sam? It took us 5 years of searching for a dev before we found somebody that would actually put in a fucking biker cut for us.
Yeah, about that. Yeah.
We
It,
hung
it was
out-
forever.
we
Everybody
hung out
said
with-
they could do it, but nobody actually
Well,
could
we
do it.
hung out-
That was
yeah,
the
we
problem.
hung out with a couple. Yeah, we hung out with a couple devs named Higgs, and what was the other one? Josh, something like that.
And Billy. I don't know if that was before or
And
after
Billy.
that.
Yeah, he
No,
was
he was
in that
later.
mix too. He was later. He was kind of right before Submersive because he was the one I got entangled with my city, but that's another
Yeah.
story.
But I was watching. Those guys promised forever.
Oh, all disconnected again.
Oh,
More technical difficulties.
Technical difficulties.
Why is it disconnected so hard?
well, this is typical Ball fashion because when we played FiveM together, his car was always the worst one to ride in the game. Nobody wanted to ride anywhere near Ball because he desynced so bad. He would just crash everybody to pieces.
Which is crazy because he's got such a good PC to have all these technical issues.
Well, no, I don't know back then if he did or not, but I mean, his was I don't know if it was internet connection or what, but back then it was horrible. Of course, mine wasn't much better back then either.
That's
think I was-
crazy because he's got a pretty monstrous PC.
Yeah.
So while we're on the topic still, Sam, what games did you play before you actually played FiveM?
Really, the only PC game I ever played was Overwatch. I got into competitive Overwatch. Well, yeah, as far as PC games, yes, true. That's true. Competitive Overwatch. I played like Minecraft with my kid on like the Xbox and stuff like that. But I didn't really do a whole lot of gaming since I was a kid. I did most of my gaming as a teenager and then kind of grew out of it for a while. Got married, moved on, the whole deal.
Yeah, yeah, I understand that. You're
But
back.
yeah, I love all the early stuff, the Super Mario Brothers and the Nintendo stuff. And I know that's really archaic, but it was fun stuff back in the day.
Yeah, I say I miss the old school days of gaming, but I was also a lot younger than everybody in this call when games came out for me. I know that some of my first consoles were like the PlayStation 2 and the Nintendo 64 later on, and
Yeah.
the Game Boy Advanced, and a lot of that stuff was way later in the games than when most of you guys actually learned about gaming and whatnot. So for me, I haven't experienced as much as you guys have in the gaming world for as
Well,
long
we
as it's been.
started when we started back when it was Atari, my friend. We are old, okay?
Yeah, true.
We've been gaming since games were born.
Yeah. Pac-Man was like one of my first rage games. It was like, but that was a quarter machine, so I had to spend actual money to play that game.
Right?
I
I
spent
remember.
many a dollar in that game, I can tell you that.
God, I can remember going to the laundromat with my mom and playing
Mhm.
like Galactica at the
Oh yeah.
laundromat on the fucking. You put a quarter in, you know.
hmm Yeah, those were good old days, man. I mean, they were the great days of gaming, the pioneering days. But
See, I never
nothing
really
like
played
what
a
we
lot
have
of
now.
retro. I haven't really got
Man,
to play anything like that.
Yeah, I mean they have emulators for everything now.
They
I
really do.
so I've just you know gotten emulators and played stuff with my kid and showed him the stuff that I grew up with. So it's been kind of cool.
The games always look super cool. I've just never really gotten a chance to play them. I mean, I've played some Pac-Man here and there, and like some of those more old school style games, but it's like I said, all been on emulators and more digitally advanced than it was when they first came out, like the classics of their time.
Yeah, true.
But so I suppose since we already kind of got into the discussion of FiveM servers and what you guys originally started on, I want to hear a little bit more about what servers you guys started in before you met each other. Because I know my original first time playing on any sort of FiveM server, I was playing on Baal's computer at his house, and I had just started a random throwaway
I met
character that I wasn't really RPing with.
I met Sam on the very first server I ever played on. I
Yeah.
went
Really?
to I was like I said, we watched a lot of Trap Piper and shit back then, and he was playing on shit. What was it called?
It
Deadly
was
Deadly
Deadly
RP.
RP. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where we started. Was Deadly RP. Uh, I seen it on their videos and went to try it. That's where I first started, and it was an alright server. It, it had some pretty cool people in it, and I enjoyed playing there.
Oh god, I might have to.
I think it's
Yeah.
because you're locked into his computer.
Yeah, I don't know. Hang on, let me Discord message him real quick.
It's got to be because you're locked into his computer. He's back.
What the hell, man?
I don't know. I think it's because we're both logged in at the same time. So if it kicks you again, you might have to log out and then click the link again and then redo everything. It'll just make you put in your name again.
I have to anyway.
Yeah, I think it just
Every
keeps.
time it kicks me, I have to relog in. Anyway, we started in Deadly RP. It was alright. We played there for a while. We left there because I asked them to put in my cut for the biker gang, and they told me they couldn't do it. And then 3 days later, they were wearing shirts that said Deadly RP on them, and it pissed us off, so we left.
Yeah, I know. You
Yeah.
guys suffered a lot of that where devs told you that stuff couldn't be done, and we discovered down the road that they were just too lazy to actually do it because you could pretty much do whatever you wanted in there.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah.
There's a lot of laziness back in those days. They
Well,
they
also-
they were happy to put the crap they wanted to put in, the rocket launchers and the fireworks launchers and the weird crazy stuff that they would show us all at nighttime. And it's like, that's great that you want to show us all these toys, but that doesn't help us with the RP in the city.
Yeah.
It's not really helpful.
That's always the unfortunate part is devs add all this cool stuff, but then no one gets to play with it but them. I know I suffered
Yeah.
from that as well. I did it quite a bit, but I also put in a lot more stuff in our server that everybody got to play with.
Yeah.
I'd say like.
Yeah, we
90%
went a little
of the stuff you
overboard
stuck
on
in
our
the server.
servers.
So, only Deadly RP for you guys. So what other servers did you guys play in before Submersive then? Was there any that you guys jumped to after Deadly RP or anything like that? I know that we jumped into Billy's City for quite a while there before Submersive started, but only because he brought Baal and I on as admins. And Baal started out as an admin first, and then I kind of earned that honor later, even though it wasn't really much of an honor because Billy's kind of a Billy.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we went to, after Deadly, it was that guy Josh's server, which is where we met Higgs, which was, what was it called?
It changed names like 4 or 5 times.
Well, what was it initially? Oh, there he goes again. I'm trying to think of what it was initially.
I can't remember either. I know what he's talking about, and that was where you guys kind of had a lot of your more interesting interactions with people once the Dogs of War started gaining a lot of its traction.
Yeah, that was kind of
Stories
where
that
our,
I've
our
heard about
proving
it.
grounds were. That's where we met Malice at. That's where we met a lot of other interesting characters at. Bogo the Barber.
That guy.
That guy's a trip.
That guy is a trip for sure.
Yep. But yeah, there were some interesting characters that flew through that city in that time frame.
I'm sorry, apparently I don't get to hang out with you guys. I'm gonna try, but it keeps I
booting
have
you.
to keep coming back.
Yeah.
I don't know what the deal is. I'm gonna try to hang with you. I get cut off in the middle of conversations, but I'm trying.
Tailored RP, that's what it
Anyway,
was. I remember
yeah,
now.
it was tailored. It was tailored, yep. And then eventually they got in a fight with their owner and it split and made their own city, and we went to that one, and then to
Yeah.
another one, and then to another one. And
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
we kind of follow. We kind of learned to follow devs, like we would hook onto a dev that would promise us stuff like Higgs, and we would follow them everywhere they went. And eventually we learned that they just weren't going to do what they said they were going to do. So I
Yeah.
quit playing for what, 3 years, 2 years.
Yeah, you quit for a while. I just kept on plugging along because, I'm a glutton for punishment. But
Yeah. And then I came back, and when I came back, you were with Billy. And I went to that city, and within a week he was like trying to make me a partner in his city.
yeah.
And I was like, I don't know about all that. And then like 2 weeks later he was like, I'm gonna sell you my server. And I was like, no, I don't know about all that either. And that's when I decided I was just gonna start my own and find a dev. At
Yeah.
the time I had a bunch of money, so I rented the server and started buying scripts that I thought looked good, and then I hired a couple different devs to set things up for me. That cost me a fortune. I paid probably fucking $3,000 in dev fees to have them set up my servers.
It was a lot of
And-
money.
and then they didn't turn out the way I wanted them to, and I kept having to call people to come back and fix stuff, and it was a mess. I bet I spent $5,000 in dev fees though, between buying scripts from them and having them put them in and set everything up. I probably spent $5,000, and then I was like, "Fuck that." And I took all my shit, and that's when I convinced Jeremy to take it and learn how to do it himself.
Yeah, we
And
spent a long time doing that.
yeah, we spent several months learning how to do that, and then then we started Submersive.
We did indeed. Sam and I were talking a little bit about tailored RP for you guys, because I know that's where the Dogs of War kind of got their start as a biker gang, where you guys actually picked up a good amount of members, and you guys slowly turned it into a
Yeah.
full-sized crew there. And we kind of wanted to hear a
We
little bit
did.
about you guys starting that.
We did. I had got a guy named met a guy named Havoc. His real name was Damien. Biker gang name was Havoc. I met him gaming out one day, and I don't remember how exactly we ended up recruiting him, but we recruited him into the biker gang, and then a couple days later, we were gonna go rob the bank. We needed a hostage, and that's when we met poor Malice. And
Yeah. That's when he met us.
Been in the he'd been in the server like a whole 10 minutes, and we kidnapped him and used him as a hostage. The poor guy. And then when it was all said and done, I was like, "Hey, if you're interested in joining the club, come on by the clubhouse." And he was there before we got there. I swear to God, it was hilarious. But that's how we met Malice. We threw him in the trunk of a car in his first 10 minutes of being in town.
I'm sure he was
Yep.
excited.
Oh yeah. Well, he said his first thought was just like, "Man, shit, really?" And then he was like, he's like, "All right, I'll roll it and see how it goes." And we've all been friends ever since. So I guess it went okay.
Yeah, honestly.
And then we ended up with a couple more guys, but I don't remember who they were. They didn't stick around long.
Well, we had the famous hair cuttery twins, the Bogo the Barber and Fades.
Bogo the Barber and Fade, yes, I know.
And
they weren't part of our club. They were always
no, they had their own
thing.
thing going on, but they were always in our business in some fashion or another. We were always they were always trying to do some kind of deal with us or some crap.
Oh yeah.
And who was that? Josh Slides, that one kid that would always like glitch into the prison, and then we'd go rob the bank, and he'd glitch out of prison and glitch back with the money.
I remember the old school.
That was great. I fucking loved that.
Yeah, it was hilarious. Nobody ever caught on either.
I think my all-time favorite robbery that the Dogs of War pulled off. All-time favorite robbery. I dressed as a security guard, and we went and robbed the bank, and I had the money on me, and I stood right outside the vault by that desk that was in the bank, and I put my hands up and did the emote like I was scared, and the cop come running by me, and I just stood still and didn't move. And he went and searched the inside of the building, and then turned around and walked right back by me and took off up the stairs. And about 5 minutes later, they were like, "Building is clear," and they all took off and left. And I walked out the front door with the cash.
Yeah,
we were. Story so many times. It's so good.
I think that was my favorite robbery of all time. It really was.
We got the big bank down pretty good there after a while. One time I hid in one of the rooms with the money, one of the like little office rooms in there, and I hid up underneath the desk, and they did come in and check the room, but they didn't look under the desk, so I got away that time too. But yeah, you could get away with a lot more back then too, because there wasn't the ability to be a cop was a little bit different back then. You didn't have the tools that you have now available to you at your disposal. Yeah, so it was a lot. You had to use your senses a lot more to be a cop back then.
You had to roleplay being a cop actually instead of using the game mechanics to your advantage, which a
Yeah.
lot of people have issues with today, and especially the FiveM community.
Oh yeah, that's a terrible problem in the FiveM community. You know,
Sorry
people
about that.
wanting to
I'm
break
back
mechanics
again.
all the time, and yeah, it drives me crazy.
Oh,
But
I don't even want to talk about that.
no,
Oh, we'll be getting into that soon. But so you guys originally met in Deadly RP, obviously, because we kind of covered that topic, and we went over a little bit on how you guys started the Dogs of War in Tailored RP. How far did you guys jump around before your numbers started to dwindle? Because I know that once it made it to Submersive, there was only a handful left before you guys built it back up again.
Yeah, to be truthful, Havoc, Malice, Sam, and I were the solid crew. Everyone else was kind of we would recruit them. They'd hang with us for a few months and then they'd disappear.
yeah,
So that was the solid crew that went with me everywhere I went. Those are the main guys. Everyone else, honestly, I can't remember any other names because they were never around I mean, long enough for me to remember them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
yeah. And there were so many too. I mean, you get
Yeah.
every 3 or 4 days you'd have a new recruit, and they'd last for an hour or two, and then you'd never see them again.
You know.
They they'd fly into the city to try it out and just leave or whatever. But yeah, it was interesting back in the day. There's a lot of crazy things that went on too because of the mechanics of the games, which you said you're gonna get into later, but so we'll talk about that later, I guess.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I know you guys played so much long before we ended up playing, and you guys got to experience the truest form of RP before the mechanics were around. And Dogs of War is one of those things where you guys would just go out, get bikes, and hang out with each other, and that was your RP. It didn't matter if you all had the same cuts or you had your own building with an interior or anything like that. You guys just wanted to get in and hang out in RP. And
Yeah,
that's
true.
truly
Yep.
what RP should be about. But I
Yep.
suppose we
And
will
we
get into
did, and we tried to
mechanics.
do that. And we tried to do that no matter what. Even when we had the cool stuff, we still tried to pull that off. And that's what made us so good. Like I had servers that were begging us to stay because we had good role play. We did shit right.
Yeah.
We tried, you know. I mean, it's a lot right, like okay, I'm not gonna lie. To this day, my biggest problem with role players is no spike strips.
The Los Santos special.
Los
Los
Santos
Santos
Federal.
special.
Yeah.
Because
The Los
everybody.
Santos
That
special.
is my
That was
to this day. That was the main goal for me is to never ever ever ask for that.
Yeah.
Completely understandable.
Every
It's
time we went to rob something, we we purposely tried our best to perform the best role play we could think of off the top of our fucking head.
Yeah. Yeah, we did. Yeah, I mean that is the sad part about it is it gets so stale a lot of times, and it was stale back then too because when you only have a limited amount of people. I mean, I think the population of tailored RP was somewhere around the neighborhood of 30 people at its best when we were in there. So I don't think that there was really enough people to create a real rich community of RP because there's just not enough people. I mean, you can only do the same things with the same people so many times before it just gets boring.
yeah, that's
Um,
that we felt a lot, especially in Submersive, because our community was so small,
yeah,
and it just ended up being that way for a long time. But I kind of do want to get into the mechanics a little bit now because it's one of those things where for you guys, you got to experience the realist.
How long of my speech did I get cut off of?
we pretty much
A little
heard it
bit
all.
on I'm about to say a little bit towards the end of it, but we heard a good amount of it.
I was just saying, my biggest deal was to never, ever, ever be like everybody else. Because if you're going to be like everybody else and ask for the same stupid shit and try the same stupid stuff, what's the point in role playing? I
Yeah.
always tried to do something different every time. I tried to do, we tried to be unique. That was my biggest deal, to be unique in role play and not be like everybody else.
From a cop's
Yeah.
perspective, who's jumped all over the place to different cities, playing as Kyle Danger and being a cop in every city that I've ever been to, especially super highly populated cities. It's just so nice to see something like that, because in every other city, you just get the people that rob, get their demands, ask for free passage and no spike strips, and then just dip and do a chase or shoot out. No one comes up with
Yep.
good escape plans, good RP. They just do the thing they want to do so they can grind, and it's
Yep.
hard for cops because we get bored and burnt out really fast when we go play other things.
And like I said,
or
I've
different
had
characters.
cops in cops in other police departments and shit in other towns, other cities, that have asked us to stick around because we're the only ones that perform real role play.
Yeah.
Like the cities we were in before, they hated it when we left. They hated it. 'Cause
I don't
were the
doubt
only
it.
ones
Well,
that
we didn't
actually
grief
role-played.
people, We never griefed anybody. We
That
always
was-
tried to make
that
it
was
fair
another
for
thing
both
with-
sides. We
Yep.
didn't try to make the cops, we didn't try to do egregious things to get away from them,
The dogs of war
sneaky,
had a
ugly
set of
things. We
rules.
just tried to, if you flipped your car 15 times, obviously you're not going to get out and run, Just get out and put your
The
hands
dogs
up.
of war had a set of rules to keep us different from everybody else. We had a set of rules within the club.
And
And
they're
that's
still
when
in
I
the
tried to
Discord
get
to
other
this day.
gangs. Yeah, I tried to get other gangs to do the same thing. Make a list of rules for your members, otherwise they're gonna run wild. But I had a list of rules like you cannot rob the banks back to back to back because it annoys the fucking cops.
Yep.
I understand people want role play, and that's kind of what you do because you're a criminal. But you do that shit back to back to back, and the cops get tired of it and they log out, and then you don't have no cops to do anything.
Yeah.
So
And there's so many other things to do. I know there probably wasn't as much back then, but there's still
I
plenty of
know.
things I can think to do without mechanics that you could have done for roleplay.
Yep.
Like,
Like I said, I'm probably the only guy ever in life to rob a fucking place. I tried to rob an what was the name of that club underneath what was the name of that club under right down the street from the police station that we put in. The arcade one.
which one?
Talking about the one that Philby ran at first.
Oh, the cyber bar? Yeah, the cyber
Yeah,
bar.
the cyber bar.
Because all it had was
I
Pokemon
tried to
cards
rob-
and Funko Pops.
I know, and I tried to rob that place for Fungo Pops with a toy gun.
Not only that, you know,
Yeah.
remember second
I
day
mean,
on-
that's the kind of role play that we would come up with, and other people didn't come up with shit like that.
I remember my second day on the force. I ran into Baal at the liquor store over next to the laundromat, trying to rob it for their liquor. There was no liquor there. He just wanted to rob it for their liquor.
Yep.
That's what
Yeah.
his
It
demand
wasn't
was,
even-
that we either brought him
It
alcohol.
wasn't even a usable wasn't even a usable store. There's not even a guy behind the register or nothing. It's just, I'm just in there like, I'm taking all the booze. You can't do nothing about it. If
I still remember that.
you want to
also.
stop me, you gotta come and get me.
Ball was hiding in the corner with just a little bitty gun in his hand,
I
and
think-
he was
I
just
think
waiting
Sam-
for them to come in.
with him. I think Sam was in the corner on the boxes, waiting. for
Probably.
the
Yeah,
party.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah,
about to say,
We
yeah.
had one
'cause-
guy on each side of the door, so when
Yeah.
the cops came in,
I
we could
remember that 'cause
blast
as soon
them.
as I walked in, Sam blew my head off.
Great. Yep. Good old
Sorry.
days.
Hey,
No, I'm not. That's the way it should
Yeah. Nah, we've all probably shot each other in the head a few times.
a lot of times.
500,000 at this point.
Yeah, we used to have a lot of fun even without all of the fancy stuff and the mechanics, and once we actually became Submersive, I know that for all of us actually being together in a group, our city had some of the best roleplay because everybody was in it to have a good time. We had a few shitlords here and there and some people that weren't as good, and we tried to teach them, and some of them got the hang of it, some of them didn't. Some of them every once in a while would do some
Yeah, I'll be
out-of-pocket
right back.
stuff. But I know for the most part that on the topic of the mechanics, you guys, when we actually started our city and we actually got it to where you guys could do just about anything you could think of that you wanted, it went from just being about role play to you guys actually using those mechanics to your guys' advantage. You would still go out and do the excessive role play to get what you guys wanted out of making your story and having your bits and whatnot and doing what you guys did, but you also took things in the city like I know Ball a couple of times would take things that like the toy gun that just didn't matter and just go out and have fun with it. He'd get in a shootout and it wouldn't hurt him, so he couldn't get charged because he has a toy gun and the cops are shooting them with fucking ARs and whatnot because
Yeah.
all they see is someone pointing something at them and they just shoot. They don't know the difference. They don't care to know the difference. Or he would go out and dress up in the goofiest fucking clothes possible and walk around with other people's IDs in his pocket so they could never identify him, and he'd be stuck in the cells for hours
Yeah.
trying to figure out who the fuck this guy is, and everybody knows who it is, but they can't prove it in roleplay.
Yeah.
And Sam would go and steal his Tarbosh would go and steal his fucking hearse and go back it up to a storefront and just wait and chat, and like you guys had so much good use of the mechanics and roleplay where you guys had a lot of fun and you got to do what you wanted to do and experience the things you wanted to experience and also make it a good time for everybody, not just get a win or do whatever you guys wanted to do where you could abuse the mechanics to grind or whatever it was.
That was probably my favorite thing about Submersive is it was like we drilled it into the cops that we wasn't gonna be a cop win server.
Yeah.
Like it was literally everything was there for fun. You lost,
And we
you
had a
lost,
lot of
oh well, you know.
Yep.
We had almost no W cops. I know that we
We had
definitely
a
tried
couple.
hard.
Yeah.
Well,
we had a
we
couple.
definitely had
But
some tryhards and some people who got a little butthurt, but for the most part, they had a lot of fun doing what they were doing, and we definitely got to experience some fun stuff with everybody.
oh yeah,
especially you
that was
and
some
Paul.
of the cops part. That was probably my favorite city to be a cop in was Submersive by far because
Yeah.
the dynamics between you and us four, because Ball's never been a cop, but between like us four was great in the PD thing, you know. So we always got along and everything went smoothly, and you know the training and stuff was just tremendous. It was, you know, sometimes a little overboard, but it was, you know, it was always above board too. I mean, it was always great material. So
Right. And
you know,
at the end of the day, you know, that's
they produced good
what we
officers.
want.
So
Exactly. That at the end of the day, we wanted officers that would act like officers and not just run around and do their own thing. Because of
yeah,
the badge.
I was happy to have you around just because you were so into doing that stuff. Because you know I'd been doing this stuff for years at that point, so I don't really have interest in sitting down and writing SOPs anymore or doing any of that kind of garbage or
Yeah,
reports for that matter.
We've kind of went over that in previous episodes about how a lot of the times people will just copy and paste SOPs from another city or they'll steal them and they come in
Yeah.
as junky garbage that they don't really understand because they're just reading it off a pamphlet. And
Yeah.
we kind of turn that into our own setup of this is exactly what we wanted to teach you guys for roleplay reasons. That way nothing would get blown out to where you'd be learning unnecessary stuff you'd never need. And you guys, we would actually train them to be cops in roleplay and not just be cops, because there's a huge difference between
Yeah.
being a cop in roleplay and being a cop in real life. And a lot of people didn't get that.
Yeah.
They wanted to teach them to be super ultra realistic, and it's like you can teach them to be realistic, but you also got to teach them how to roleplay being a
Yeah.
cop, because
Yep.
it's entirely different when you're playing as a character in a video game with a certain set of mechanics and standards you have to live by, rather than being a
Yeah.
cop in real life where you have all this equipment, tools, knowledge, and especially other officers at your disposal. Sometimes I'd get into the city and there'd be one, maybe two cops on at most. And we had
Yeah.
to work with that as our resources. We had what we had in our pockets and our armory at our disposal, and then we had one officer extra
Yep.
to help us out against 10 criminals that were doing things all at the same time.
Yeah.
Whereas in real life, you have an entire unit of 10 to 20 officers on hand at one scene at a time, and then other officers doing things elsewhere. And you
Yeah.
just don't get that in a small city like we had. So we had to go with what we had at the time. So we would teach them to work with what they had. If it was too dangerous, you backed off. In real life, you don't really do that. You call for backup and you get extra help to make it a better
Yeah.
situation. We didn't
I
have
don't
that
like-
option.
Yeah.
I don't think Ball's gonna make it back in. He's
The
trying.
5M curse for him.
It
It's
is.
just-
It's that 5M. It's that submersive curse.
Very true. But yeah, I know that.
I mean, that's the thing too, is that people never got was, like you said, is that you have to work within the constraints of the 5M universe. You can be only as realistic as you can be. I mean, when you're driving down the road as a cop and your car just goes poof in the middle of a scene, and you're like, okay, then you got to figure out how to work that into everything and still make it keep going.
Exactly, or scuffs
So-
especially.
Yeah, things like that. I mean, things scuff out, people head pops, all kinds of things happen, and it's impossible to keep it totally realistic 100% of the time. But you have to learn how to work within your means to do the best you can to do that. To me, that's what good role play is, anyway.
It really is, especially with like a cop crim dynamic. I know I've played both sides of it. I think everybody here really has played both sides of it, and for me, I personally enjoy being a cop more because of the interactions with people. So a
Yeah.
lot of it for me was role play over mechanics. Like, you can spend so much time making a good cop character and playing as a great cop that people enjoyed doing crim stuff against, or you could be a fucking hard ass like some people, and people will just hate your character. But at the same time, it's both sides of the same coin of being good roleplay. You're either acting as realistic as you can, or you're doing your roleplay and being your character.
Yeah, but that does bring up another point that I've always tried to teach people when I brought them in as officers and tried to teach them about role play, is that you're only going to get as good a role play out of somebody else as you give them. So if you are just want to be a total dickhead to everybody you meet when you're RPing, then you're not going to go very far in the RP world, because people are only going to take that but so far. People do not. They don't like assholes in real life, so they're not going to like them in a fake world.
Right.
Yeah, that is especially true
Facts.
for both sides, crims and cops, because you can get a cop
Yeah.
in there that's as nice as can be, and you get a crim in there that's talking mad smack because they lost, and it'll bring the whole mood down and destroy the whole scene because they don't want
Yeah.
to interact with each other because they just are upset.
Yeah,
And
and it does. I mean, after a while, it wears on you, especially if you've been doing it for hours on end, and you're getting just the same people over and over and over again, and you're having to listen to the same arguments, the same petty
Mess.
bullshit. Yeah, the same petty shit. It just that's what starts to wear down on you in the RP world, I think, which is why probably most of you don't play it anymore. But
Yeah,
Yeah,
Mine was
I
more
play 'em.
That what you just explained was Officer Romez.
yeah, he has a special place in my heart.
I played Luke as a dickhead, but I don't think he was.
His
he
thing was
wasn't
he
bad. I
tried
was a dick.
he tried too hard to. He was one of those win cops.
Yeah,
He had to come out
Yep.
on top no matter what. And that was
Yep.
his issue. That was his only issue. Other than that, he was decent. He was pretty good at RP. I mean, he wasn't a bad guy. It's just that he did not know how to take an L. He had to find a way around it to win.
Facts.
I will agree on that a little bit, but also we were just super duper good at our jobs, and Luke would always find some of the best ways to do the job itself. He would use everything to his advantage, and he would find everything that he could to get that win. Because I mean, at the end of the day, we were just doing our jobs, and we were busting it out and trying to be the
played-
best that we could possibly be.
I played Luke as how a cop, like an actual cop would be.
Yeah.
Like he was hard and he was strict, but I gave leniency. Like if I didn't feel like
Oh,
chasing
no,
that
for
fucking
sure.
dude because he was just better than me, then I'm sorry, but I would just let him the fuck go.
Yeah. I know that when Trash Can first got into the server and we went up against his driving, bro, it was so hard to catch. He had
I'm not gonna lie.
he had the Guardian, the big ass fucking truck,
I remember that.
and
Yeah, I
he
remember
could
that.
drive that thing like a madman.
Oh
Like
yeah, I
you would
remember
lose
that.
him in interceptors. He would just
I
be going
remember-
around corners tight and just lose you.
The only person that I really had struggle catching up with was either Dwayne in his fast cars, or honestly, Jacob. Jacob, dude,
Jacob
was
was
elusive.
good.
He was elusive, dude. He could get
He
into
was-
anything, and,
Yeah, he
it's
was.
hard to catch him.
It's because he spent so long when
The
nobody
only
was in
problem,
the city just
the
driving
only
around.
problem anyone had with Luke when he played as Luke was that Luke was an asshole.
I was an asshole, but that's why I
that
made
was
Bob.
his.
But that was your
That was his whole character.
that was your
Yeah, that
character
was the
though.
Yeah.
character, though. That's why whenever I was Peter
I
Griffin,
tried to
was a
explain
dick
that to
Joss.
people. I was like, Luke himself is a cool guy. I was like, his fucking character. I'm not. He plays an asshole because that's what Luke Stevens is supposed
Yep.
to be. He's an asshole.
So
I
many
was like,
people
that's-
can't
that's his whole
differentiate that
character.
line. They just, you
Yeah.
know, it's
Yeah.
like, you know how many
They're all like, "No, he's
admin
just a
complaints I
dickhead."
get
I'm
on
like, "No, he's
characters for them being assholes to people, and I'm like, you know, they're role playing, you know. They're like,
Yeah.
well, no, they're just salty.
That's
I'm like,
funny.
well, maybe so. I don't know, but you
Yeah.
know.
I mean, don't get me wrong. There was a couple. Everyone has salty moments in roleplay.
Oh yeah,
Always.
But that's why I liked
Oh, yeah.
Luke so much, is because if I was salty, that's still part of his character.
yeah.
But that's
Yep.
why I also made Bobby
an
so that
asshole.
way I could have fun, and then Peter and all that shit.
Yeah.
I know that for
That's
sure.
what I tried to explain to everybody though. They were all like, "He's a fucking dick." I'm like, "Not really though.
I was.
I mean, he's supposed to be a dick."
Just on that one character.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
like, if you get to know him, he's all right. I was like, but his character's a dick.
The way I
he's
see it is, I don't
supposed
take
to
it
be.
in the heart. If anyone doesn't like me, then they don't like me. I'm not going to hold any grudge against anyone. So if you like me, then you like me. If you don't, there's the door.
Yep. That is entirely facts. So while we're on the topic of other characters we played, I know Baal for 95 to 99% of the time he played as Baal, the president of the Dogs of War Biker Club. But Sam had multiple characters that he played as, and
Yeah.
he had a ton of different experiences playing both characters.
Yeah.
Oh, look, we got a
I
surprise
keep
guest,
getting kicked
Slicks.
The Slick. Mr.
Oh,
Seth.
cool.
But yeah, Sam had Duncan, the
Yeah.
commissioner of the police in Submersive, and he played as a commissioner actually in, I think, one more city before that. And he also had Sam Crow, who was in the biker club with Baal. I don't know exactly what position he was. I think he was vice president, but I know you
Yeah.
were. I was about to say, I know you guys were like finicky on that. I wasn't exactly 100% sure.
Yeah,
And
at
then
one
he had-
time we were actually like kind of like co-presidents, we were called it. You know, we were both alphas, I guess you would say. But and that's like because at one point he was working a lot when the season came back around, so I'd have to run things a lot more. So we just made it to where both of us had the boss rights, you know, and as far as the money goes and everything like that.
Yeah, because in every city you have to have the people that are actually in control of the boss menu for the mechanic of the game. Otherwise, you can't do anything.
Yeah.
If the boss ain't around, the club is basically standing around with their dicks in their hands or just doing whatever they want off somewhere else,
Yeah. Yeah.
putting
and
money
then
in their
with-
own pockets.
Exactly. Yeah, with no oversight, you're not getting any money getting put into the club because there's nobody there watching to see how many robberies they're doing a day
Yeah,
and how
But-
much money you're missing your cut on.
yeah, that is no joke. And we also know about probably one of our favorite characters of yours, Mr. Tarbosh Khalil, the man himself.
The Egyptian magician.
Yeah. Tarbosh was probably one of my favorite characters to roleplay with when it came to robberies because he was not only fun but goofy,
there.
and you just had a
Yeah.
good time when he was around. You knew if you heard somebody was robbing the store on the northern side of Vinewood that was just a little 24/7 up there, They were like, "Oh, there's a hearse outside." You were like, "Oh, I'm going there right now. Tarbosh is there. Everybody
Yep.
load up. We're going there right now."
Yep. Yeah, we've had some fun robberies with Tarbosh. I mean, I created the character. I don't know if anyone remembers these guys called the Jerky Boys, but they used to prank call people on telephones back before there were even cell phones
I
back
gotta
in the
look that up.
90s. Yeah, look it up on YouTube. There's they actually did some really cool
know
stuff.
what
It's
you're talking
really
about.
funny stuff. And one of their characters was named
I'll go look it
Tarbosh,
up right now.
and
What'd you say it
so the Jerky Boys.
was? Okay.
Yeah, so um, it was so funny that I used to listen to them a lot, and actually a band I was in wrote a song using a lot of the material from what they did in their skits. We had a bass player that could do the voices really well, so we'd actually did a whole song based on their material. And later on in years, I found the guy's number online, and I got into contact with him, and I sent him the song. He's like, "Hell yeah, that's awesome, dude." He's like, can't even believe anybody remembers this anymore. This is like 15, 20 years later. So it was cool. But yeah, that's where Tarbosh came from, was that, and the guy called himself the Egyptian magician. And so I just kind of built my character and everything around that, because, he's Pakistani, he's not really Egyptian. And there's always something to do with camels or something crazy. He's always got some weird backstory going on.
You always created some of the funniest stories doing Tarbosh too. Like the whole hearse thing was just hilarious because you always
Yeah.
knew exactly where to find it there at that funeral home, and you would just
Yeah.
go snag it up and just drive it everywhere. And it always had the little guy in the back, the little Frankenstein guy with his arm sticking
Yeah.
out. I can't remember what you called him, but we always loved looking at that because he would just be sitting in the back staring at us while we're chasing him down.
Yeah. Yeah, that I loved driving that car. And when I actually was able to own it later on in cities later on, I think Submersive was the first place I ever got to own it was. And then I was able to upgrade it, so it was awesome because I actually could get away from the cops in it once I upgraded it.
It was actually useful.
Yeah, it was actually a useful tool. Except I think the one time I ran off into the dam with it. And I think that was in Submersive. I can't remember who the cops were,
I
but
remember exactly what you're talking about. You're talking about over on the top left side over near what's the M place? It's the place where you put the villa in. Over there near the dam.
Oh yeah, up by Mirror Park.
Yeah, Mirror Park.
yeah. It was on the dam side, and I just ran off the road and went sailing off into the water. And I was going to get out and start firing weapons and stuff, but I was like, nah, if I did that in real life, I probably wouldn't have done so well because I rolled the car several times. So I said, no, let me just get out and put my hands up. Y'all got me. Yep, Tarbosh rides again.
No, actually, Tarbosh got away that day. We did arrest you, but I remember someone was with you that day. There was someone else that was helping you. And as we was taking you up, we got ambushed by someone else, and you actually got away on foot, but you were still handcuffed. And I think Baal or somebody, I could be thinking wrong. I'm pretty sure Baal or somebody had a pair of handcuffs and uncuffed you after a while.
It wouldn't surprise me. You two
I
were
do
always
remember.
super sneaky.
I remember a situation like that too. I remember somebody having some handcuff keys and me getting away cuffed one time. Yeah.
I remember that. It's faint, but I think that's the
I
time.
used to do that all the time.
Yeah, we had all. I mean, Ball's the master of trickery. That guy comes up with more. I'm not that quick with stuff as he is, man. He comes up with the most ingenious plots I've ever seen. Some of the stuff that we've done and pulled off, it's just like,
It helps.
dude, that's
helps
epic,
to
you know.
It helps to be a criminal in real life. Because then you think a criminal, you think like a criminal, you know.
Yeah, true.
I'm about to say, I know Baal has plotted on all of us a lot.
I'm not saying I'm a criminal mastermind or nothing, but I'm a fucking criminal mastermind, you know.
FBI comes pounding on his door.
Yep.
You're live. You know that, Baal.
Yep.
Watch what you say.
Oh man.
Ball's actually on the FBI's most wanted right now.
You never know.
Just his alias.
Right. Just
I mean,
all-
I think the last robbery we pulled off was in Submersive before Submersive shut down. That was fun. Was we all got in the back of that one truck? It was like a I don't think it was a mule. It might have been a mule, but I
Oh,
think
it's
it
the
was more like
Benson, the one with the door that comes down.
yeah. And parked in front of the bank, and then there was like 5 of us in the back of it, waiting for the cops to show up, and we just. I think what did we do? Did we come out and Swiss cheese them, or I don't remember
can't-
what happened.
I can't remember, but I remember that I think I was playing Jorgen at that time because I think I was driving the truck, and I was
Yeah.
playing my dog's war character, and we had
Yeah.
rolled up on somebody and
Oh,
opened the door
that
and
was
took
me and
people
you.
hostage.
We rolled up on Ike's character,
Yeah,
Ike's civvy character.
and we took him hostage and put him in the back of the truck, and then we got you guys in, and we all just went and sat in front of the bank, and 2 people went into the bank while the rest of everybody was in the back of the truck, and when the cops
Yeah.
showed up, the back of the truck just opened, and they were completely screwed because they were outnumbered.
Yeah.
There was like
Yeah.
2 cops, and there was the max amount of players we could have there for a scene, basically robbing the bank, and we just ended up overwhelming them and
And I'm
driving
pretty-
the fucking truck away.
Wasn't the bank already being robbed too?
I think
I think
can't
it was
remember.
because
I
I think there
we
was.
rolled up on it at the same because we always had the worst timing with that. We'd go
Yeah.
plot something out for like 30 minutes, and when we showed up,
Yeah.
terrible fucking things would
I
happen
think
because
somebody
we'd always
was
have
about
the
to-
worst timing.
I could. I
Yeah.
think somebody was about to rob the bank because they had a hostage as well, and we were like, "Nah, well, now all of you are our hostages."
I know
think
that. No, I think that was around the same time the triads were around,
Yeah.
and I want to
Oh,
say
man,
Junior
yeah.
was. I want to say Junior was there robbing the bank because I remember the gingerbread guy, and he always
Yeah.
had the goofy gingerbread like tight skinned bodysuit on with the gingerbread mask.
Yep. Yeah. Oh yeah, he was definitely involved in that. And that guy, who was the other guy that was involved in the triads? Kyle. Was it Kyle? Somebody?
Kyle
Um,
Connors,
Kyle Connors. Yeah.
Yeah.
that fucking guy.
Yeah, I remember that was
I don't know why
a
it
nightmare.
keeps beating me.
That's one of those characters that we tried to teach how to roleplay and give him rules for his gangs and set him all the way up for success, and he just could not take a
Failed
hint.
horribly.
He's
Yeah.
just too used to 100k or
Failed
die
horribly.
servers.
Say it properly. He failed horribly.
He did fail horribly, and he's
Yeah.
he is such a sore loser. All he wanted to do was run and gun, and if he lost, he cried like a bitch
Yeah.
every time.
And there was so much of that. That's what's so unnecessary in FiveM is the whole crying about everything. It's like, take your L and move on.
It's
Yeah,
not like
stop
it's the end of the world. You can do
Yeah,
another
it's a
thing in
video
30
game,
minutes.
Yeah.
If
Just
you go to
move
jail,
on.
it might be an hour, but then you can still go roleplay in jail and come up with more stuff, meet new people.
Yeah, I mean, where
If
I
you could
play
be-
at now, they'll send you to jail for 2.5 hours. Easy. If you
And
shoot
you
a
can
cop.
You can meet so many people that way, though. I know
Yeah.
that in Billy's City, I ended up meeting so many people as my original Jorgen character by going to jail, sitting there, and people would just pop up and you'd just be stuck bullshitting with them. You had no choice. You were in
Yeah.
jail until your time was up, and then if you made friends, you would just sit outside the jail and wait for them to come out of the jail too so you could go hang out.
Yeah. The jail was just a big hangout spot.
I
It
kinda
really
wanna,
was.
I kind of want to know how a scene would have turned out with Baal, Tarbosh, and Dredd and Miles.
Oh, we would be unstoppable.
Well, cause
Jason
Oh, yeah.
never, ever got caught.
except for he got a ticket.
He
a
got
ticket.
one ticket. He never actually got caught for robbing anything. I got caught speeding on my way to make fake IDs.
Yeah.
And I was literally outside of the shop for the fake IDs when I got pulled over because I had stopped, and then I was looking towards the store door, and I look behind me, and all of a sudden there's flashing lights, and the chief pulls up behind me and gives me a fat ticket. I almost talked my
Yep.
way out of it too, but he was like, "Nope, you were going way too fast." I was too. I was probably doing like 100 through the streets, and just flying,
Yeah.
trying to get there so no one would see me. I know
Man.
that Mr. Ball would. That man would get away so often because he never drove cars. He always drove motorcycles because he had, like you said back in the day, just the biggest lag problems. And the only way he could drive was riding on a motorcycle because it had a harder time
Yeah,
falling
but
through the map.
I fixed that problem though.
Yeah, you eventually did fix that problem, but most of the time you would just be driving on the bike and rolling around
And
that
I
way.
still to this day prefer to use a bike to get away because I can get away quicker on a motorcycle or a dirt bike because I can go off road, I can hide, I can squeeze in between places you guys can't with cars.
You can
It's
turn
just
so much better on a
easier.
bike. You ain't got to worry about
Yeah.
spinning
it's
out on a
just-
motorcycle if you hit something. You just got to worry about falling
It's
off.
just so much easier.
You just gotta
In
worry
my
about clipping
opinion,
those
it's like-
stupid signs.
In my opinion, it's just so much easier on a bike to get away from you guys. I mean, I can fit in places you can't. I can disappear real quick. It's not hard.
Yeah.
It's so true, and you got to always worry about cops also being jackasses and non-driving motherfuckers.
Yeah. Pitting your ass off the
And-
bike.
And when it comes to the L's, that was one of the things I fucking made sure dogs were understood too. If you were in my club, you had to be able to take an L. If you couldn't take an L, you couldn't roll with us. If you wanted to bitch about the fucking cops all the time, bitch about it to yourself.
Yeah. I know that there's 3 characters that I loved having in the cells because you guys didn't complain and you always had a good time, and even though you were losing or going to jail, you didn't care. And that would be Baal, because he
do that.
always had
I
a goofy
fucking-
time in the cells. Edna,
I would do
because
that.
it always turned into a shit show, even though it was funny. And I still
Mhm.
have clips to this day of her being in the cells and just doing the goofiest of shit. And Tarbosh, because he just makes me laugh every fucking time he gets in the cell, just with his random stories and the accent and just all of it. It just cracks me the
Yeah.
fuck up to the point where I'd have to mute myself so you couldn't hear me laughing through my push to talk.
Well, that's cool. I'm glad I made you laugh. Cause yeah, I mean, I use Tarbosh as like a canvas, you know. I just whatever comes to mind, I just blurt it out, you know. So it's
That's some of
fun.
the
Yeah,
best role
I just get to
though.
drinking and I just say whatever comes to mind, you know.
That's
the
some
Indian
of the best
accent.
roleplay is impromptu, funny, and just saying whatever's on your mind. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. As long
Yeah,
as you're not being a jackass and saying shit you shouldn't say, whatever comes to mind, just fucking say it. Because
yeah,
if it's funny
Yep.
or it's pertaining to the situation, it's still goofy. That's all that matters. Is just
Yeah.
having a good time and taking your L with dignity and trying to make everybody else also have a good time.
yeah. Just not taking
Yeah.
it so seriously. That's the big thing.
In my opinion, the best roleplay is when you're trying to. The best role players are people who are trying to make it enjoyable for everybody and not themselves. Like that was my biggest problem with everybody in FiveM. They're always all about themselves. Like I go make the money, get the best cars, blah blah blah. Nobody ever wanted to role play. In my opinion, it was more about the going out and interacting. I didn't care if I lost. Shit, I go to jail all the time for nothing, just to fucking interact with the cops. I preferred it. Like I said, that's what
Yeah.
the role play is about.
I think that's why I made Jackson Black, was because most of my characters are just serious.
I only ever made one W character, and that was Jason. And that was just because I had seen so many people do robberies bad that I wanted to show them how good you could do robberies and still win and do it the right way. Which is why he always got away, is because we actually sat down. Luke and I always
Oh,
planned
man.
everything out. Dwayne and I always planned everything out. Anybody that I took on a
Bro.
robbery got away because we actually planned shit out. We had
It
backup
would take
ideas.
us like an hour, too. It'd take us like an hour to plan and or at least prep. You know what I'm saying?
And we get fucked over all the time too, because sometimes it'd take us so long prepping that cops would get off and we go, well, we'll do it the next day.
Right.
And then as soon as there was cops on, we would go and do our ideas or our plans. And like I said, he never got caught because we
No.
always took the time to actually role play out, doing every step for a good crime. And by the end of it, like, I think Foster had a list of an investigation going on into Jason, because he was just like, before 3.0 came out, that was just a mile long of different crimes pertaining to the same vehicles that weren't quite linked to us, or there was a little bit of notes and shit left behind for secrets and stuff, because it got to the point where we were like, well, they don't know nothing.
accidentally
So let's start
dropping
leaving.
accidentally dropping something at the
Yeah,
bank,
like our
your
ID that's like in the same area, or like
Yep.
your calling card of some kind, or
Yep.
leaving your car close to the crime scene, so that way they would be like, well, why is this here? Who's this?
There was also that instance where me and you tried to plan out a crime scene for cops to see how good their investigation skills was. whenever we, you remember the tombstone or whatever it is that's over near the graveyard up north near Michael's house,
I
where
think
you can
so.
go down in the basement and it's like a sacrifice altar or something.
Oh
And
yeah,
then we
Mhm.
yeah.
what's his name's brother's vehicle over in an alley somewhere, and we let off a bunch of pop shots and left the gun in the vehicle.
Yeah.
And that's
It
what
was
we
one of
decided,
our guns that was actually
trying to get cops to do work, but
it was one of our guns that was linked to one of
yeah,
our dills, and we were trying to get it to where like we could say it was stolen and they would investigate onto who stole it, where the shots came from. It's this person's vehicle, but this person's gun that have nothing to do with each other. And we spent so long just planning stuff like that.
Yeah.
It seems
I mean,
that Baal has fully crashed this time.
yeah. I mean, plan is that's one of the things that always bugged me about being a cop, because you don't have the time as a cop to plan for your day. It's like you're out there just flying by the seat of your pants, and you get a call and you go and you have to deal with whatever it is that you're running into. When you're a criminal in the city, you can plan infinitely. I mean, you could take 2 weeks to plan a robbery if you want, So it's kind of like, when criminals get that whole L mentality, they get pissed off about losing. It's like, come on, you guys had, as much time as you want. The cops don't have any time. They just have to
React.
react. That's all you can do
react.
when you're a cop. And so then they want to get shitty with you when things don't go their way, and it's like,
you should have planned it better.
yeah, you should have planned better. I mean, it's not that hard to get away from cops if you plan properly.
And well, not only that though, like, and even if you have to come up with something on the fly, like, don't get me wrong, it's kind of a shitty scenario, but like, if you're running from the cops and your plan fails or you have no plan, there's always a river. There's always some other way to get away from the cops than a shootout. But
Yep.
a lot of people just
Yep.
want the shootouts.
Yeah.
And then wonder why afterwards the cops are so overpowered. Well, this is what we do all day. We get to shoot guns all day, so of course we're going to have better accuracy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not only that, we spend so long training the people who play as cops in cities, and we wanted to make sure that if they were going to be cops, it was more realistic. So like we would work together like it was a FPS shooter, and we would train our guys in specific battlegrounds on when to shoot, when not to shoot, where to look for people. We trained them on like borderline military tactics at one point, so that way they would quit getting killed in gunfights, because they would lose, and then our cops would complain, and we were like, no, you guys just need to understand that the Crims are out shooting NPC peds when you're not in town. They're practicing. You guys just don't have practice because we're cops. And it's not the same to practice in the shooting range as it is to practice on people.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot more movement mechanics, up downs, hiding behind walls, and yeah, they shoot back. You can't just go hit a target and expect to be the best. So we started actually teaching them how to practice being real cops, because it was so hard for. I know Romez when he first was doing Romez and Foster, and
Somebody's car's
there's a
getting
couple
broken into.
others. There's a couple others that just they had the hardest time getting into the whole cop thing, because they would die every time there was a shootout, because we would go pistols starting out so we could match fire, and then it would turn into ARs, and then they'd panic and get shot down and be like, well shit, now we're dead and no one's here to save us, and then they'd Crims would have to take them to the hospital. So we ended up teaching them when to get into a gunfight and when to back off, because
when
you were
to
fucked.
stay in cover and rely on teammates and when not to.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That was another issue, was cover.
Yeah.
People would
They'd just be out in the open.
Be out in the middle of the street trying to shoot, and it's like, if you get gunned down or ran over, that's your fault.
Well, that's why for the longest time I tried to tell people, just open your car door and stay behind your car, because then they have to run your car over to get to you, or they have to shoot through your car. Like, there's no reason to be standing in the middle of the street hoping to land some shots and rolling around all the damn time, because for one, it's not realistic, and for two, you're so much safer if you have cover. So much safer.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah, I was never the best shooter, never the best cop. I mean, my gig was, I like doing the RP with the people, So I roll with the punches, whatever. I got taken hostage so many times as commissioner, and I always thought it was fun. I had a great time doing it.
Oh yeah. Baal always was that way too. If he was here, he'd tell you he has the most RP aim of anyone you'll ever
That's
see.
what
He
I was
never
about to
shot
say.
to kill people. He just shoots around them, or he'll shoot like a wall next to him. Like he probably could have, like with how much he was good at Fortnite, he probably could have killed so many people in FiveM
Oh,
if he
yeah.
wanted to, but he would never actually shoot people. Like if he was gunning for you, he'd gun one person and then leave the rest of the cops. He would never try to wipe the cops out or anything like that, even if he could.
Yeah.
Like he would just RP aim all day and wait until they gunned him
Paul would
down
rather
because he was
get one or two licks on a cop and then pretend like he don't know what the fuck's going on. He'd be
Yeah.
like, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't shoot no fucking cop.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, you can't prove it, and the gun's like 10 miles away in a fucking trash can where he dumped it.
That's what I was
Yep.
going to say though, is that Sam and Ball was probably the two best RPers on in the city.
Yeah.
I appreciate that, man.
They really took the time to think stuff out, and they played characters super well, and they used everything they possibly could to make a good story and make everybody have a good time.
Yeah.
And
That's what we
the
tried to
best
do.
part. That is
You
the
know.
best part of role playing.
But, we all had fun. It was a great time.
It was
For as long as it lasted, it was a great time. And I remember I have lots of fond memories of all the nights of sitting in there playing, cops or crims, either or with you guys.
My favorite
We've
thing
done
that I
some
miss
lot of
is
fun
clubs.
things.
hitting the clubs up with everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just going to a place just to have a dance party for
Yep.
hours on end.
That's what I was telling Kyle the other day. I was like, I was playing Star Citizen, and I actually got people to do a ship meet, because in that game it's all about ships and stuff. And we met over in New Babbage, which they have a frozen lake, so it's big. And I got in chat and I was like, listen, I was like, if anyone wants to bring over a ship and all that, and we had like 16 people show up, and it's like that's the same shit that we did, and it was just it's cool. Like it's just like the car
Yeah.
meet we used to have in GTA and shit. It was just nostalgic.
Yeah, the
I
car
guess.
shows and shit. Hell
Yeah,
yeah.
car
Yep.
shit. We had a ship meet.
Community.
Yeah.
Just hanging out with people and having a good time.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the biggest things I miss is doing community events where everybody gets together and has a good time. That way, it's not just a bunch of people going off and doing their own thing and like fighting back and forth basically, or trying to get one up on another person. We were just all there. Didn't matter what you were doing. We were just there to have a good time, like the drift events or the car shows or parties at random places or going out and like doing fishing events and stuff like that, or hunting events, and just going out and having a good time with the community and hanging out with each other. And it didn't matter what you were doing or who you were. We were all just there to have a good time.
Yeah. Yeah. We never excluded anyone. We just always took everybody in and had a great time.
I think that's what made our city so popular, is because it didn't matter who you were or where you came from. You could
Yeah.
just come, you could hang out, and you could have a good time. We were all friends at the end of the day, even if we weren't friends in RP.
Yeah. Yep. True
We
statement.
obviously have a very family-like concept with some of the people that we know from there, where we're not as fond of them as others, and some of us have a little issues with them here and there. I know that for a while there I had an issue with Edna because she was constantly breaking shit and abusing mechanics, but at the end of the day, Edna was still a cool person to play with, not in
Oh,
5M.
dude.
Yeah.
Her character was awesome.
Her characters were awesome.
Yeah. She
just
always
had
put thought
issues.
behind everything. It was just the whole
Always.
breaking stuff was like, come
Yeah.
on, stop breaking
That
stuff.
was like,
Yeah.
I felt like that was her number one goal every time she got out in the city was, what can I break today?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What can I find that is broken that I can just abuse?
And she
Yep.
did that because she went out and explored so much fucking shit. Like when nobody was around at
Right.
the times, because she's in a different time zone, it would just be her running around like Devin and just touching everything.
Yep.
Literally anything she could get her hands on. And she'd fuck with it until she figured it out too. Like if she couldn't figure something out, she would mess with it, mess with it, mess with it. Or she'd find somebody else to bring in to mess with it and mess with it until they figured it out to make it do what they wanted to, or they would break it and be like, well shit, it does that? I didn't know it did that. It's probably not supposed to do that, so we're just gonna keep fucking with it.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a lot of that back in the day.
There sure was. There sure
And then
was.
when that switches over to when you're the owner of a city or you're the dev or the admins of a city, then you start having to deal with that. It starts to become a headache, because it's just a constant battle keeping people honest, I guess, if you will.
We've talked about it in the last episode, and I think the first episode too, where I didn't get to do as much role play as everybody else because I spent a lot of my time fixing things.
Yeah.
And when I was role playing, there was constantly people coming up to me and being like, "Hey, Danger, can you do this? Can you do that?
I
This is
remember
broken."
I was honestly getting mad at you too. I was braiding your ass there for a while, being like, "Listen, dude, you gotta stop working so much, man. We need you in the city and shit."
Yeah,
Yeah.
you guys would tell me to get on a schedule all the time, and I was so bad at schedules. I've gotten a lot better at it now, where I'm on more of a schedule for things, especially this podcast where we actually do it when we're supposed to do it for the most part. And
Yeah.
it's a lot easier now that I don't have 100
I
things
was
going on in
supposed
the
to only
background.
stream Elden Ring on Fridays though, so Kyle's a bad influence still.
A little bit. And we still haven't played Call of the Wild on Mondays either.
Yeah, no. I said I was gonna make a schedule, and we was also supposed to. I think like yesterday or the day before that, me, you, and Dwayne was supposed to sit down and make a schedule list. Never happened.
We're still supposed to make a list of who's on the podcast too, and we throw that shit out the window all the time.
I was gonna
But
say, I
since
got a
we're-
half-ass schedule.
Since we're on the topic of other games,
Yeah,
Sam,
I guess you do what you're saying.
my last topic for you guys is the future of gaming and games that you want to play that are either upcoming, that you're already playing, or what did you get into on a day-to-day since Submersive is now gone. Because part of why we created this podcast is that no one in the community really hangs out as much anymore. I mean, there's a little groups of us here and there, but it's not like it used to be where we would get in the city and there would be 10 people on one day and then 5 different people on the next day with those 10 people, and it would just kind of mix and blend so that way we could all hang out. So what games do you play now?
Well, I played a lot of. I still play FiveM all the time. I mean, I play in a city called Badlands, which is like 300 people. So it's pretty interesting. It's like organized chaos or unorganized chaos. I mean, at any given time, there's usually 6 cop chases going on. There's usually about 30 cops in the city at most times. So there's always plenty of cops, plenty of stuff to be doing. I mean, the hardest thing is to find something to rob because everything's usually being robbed at one time because everybody's running around robbing stuff
With 300
constantly.
people, it does not surprise me.
Yeah, I mean, it gets ludicrous at times, but it's fun. The people are pretty nice. I mean, you know, I can't say I've run into a few shitheads, but that's everywhere. I mean, out of 300 people, it's been great. And so yes, I haven't really had the cop itch in there. I've been playing a mafia character with Tarbosh, so that's been interesting going to the mafia world with Tarbosh.
I bet that's so much fun.
Oh yeah, he's a little interesting in that frame of mind because you know he doesn't really fit in. He's kind of like the square peg in the round hole, you know. So, but that works out fine for me because that's exactly how I want to play, you know.
Oh yeah.
So, but yeah, I'm enjoying doing that. I still play Fortnite a lot. I still play Microsoft Flight Sim. You know, I play basically whatever I can get into. You know.
Totally understandable, man.
Well, I know Baal for one, and me both. We're waiting for Dune.
Yeah, I know you guys.
Couple
Well, we
more
just
days.
got done playing PAX Day. Well, everybody was involved in that, and that just kind of went south, I guess. Now they've wiped everything.
Yeah,
All of the hard work that everybody has done.
It fell off hard because I was working heavily at the time, and Dwayne was working at the time, and Baal had just started working again when we were like actually getting
I
set
couldn't
up in
even
it.
Run the fucking game.
Luke had a hard time
Yeah.
running it, and we kind of built up and then climaxed and then slowly fell off
Yeah.
until none of us were
I
playing.
did know that they did do some recent updates with it though here lately. I actually downloaded it I think yesterday or the day before just to get in and see. And they said that they did check fix some stuff, and I was able to run it with 0 stuff now, the way I had it before, but it would run a little bit smoother. So still probably not a game I could get into right now, but they did do some work on it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a rough game. I mean, it was a grindy, you know.
It was
I think
for optimizing
that what
it.
their intentions were for the game, I think were a lot better than what they came out with in reality.
Yeah.
I think it would have been a
Yeah.
great role play game if they had just had, you know, a proximity chat system for one.
Voice chat
Yeah.
for sure. It ruins
I mean-
games for roleplay if you don't have them.
Yeah, I mean, how did they expect you to role play with text chat?
I feel the same
Especially
way
the
about Star Citizen too. They don't have voice chat on there; it's just text chat.
yeah. I mean, I understand there's a few older games that are like that, but there's no excuse for a brand new game to come out and not have VoIP. I mean, because
Right.
so many games use it, and it's not that big of a deal anymore. Everything has VoIP in it now.
Yeah. Well, Sam, I think that pretty much wraps up the Submersive Podcast for this episode. We really appreciate you for coming out and taking your time to sit down with us and talk with us about what happened before Submersive and where you guys
Well,
started and where you guys came from. It's so interesting to hear, and I can't wait for the community to get where the original guys that started everything came from, because I know a lot of them some of them were playing when you guys were playing, but most of us really weren't. So it's really cool
Yeah.
to hear the original stories from the
Right.
original guys.
Cool. Yeah, I enjoyed it, man. Thanks for having me on, and I hope that the show goes well for you and the podcast series goes well for you,
We are super
for both you
excited. Well,
guys.
I want to give a shout out to Baal the Man, Lord Warclan himself, and Sam Crow, Tarbosh, Duncan, the man, the myth, the legends over here. We also had Assassin Hero 181. You can find him on twitch.tv/Assassin Hero 181. And my co-host Mindless Kills at twitch.tv/Mindless Kills. And myself, Kyle Danger, at twitch.tv/Lord_Commander_Jorgen. Thank you guys so much for watching. You can find the podcast on our YouTube channel as Submersive Podcast, and you can also find us on Twitch every Saturday. We are live. New podcast episodes come out on Monday. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and take it easy if everybody wants to mute up.